everyone. I'm here today to do a decorator interview with Kate Johnson from the LikelyTale Witch. I am so excited to sit down and chat with Kate. She is a creator of all kinds of amazing things, such as the Likely Herbarium and the Likely Tarot, which is currently on Kickstarter. And also tons of prints and amazing things. So I'm just, yeah, there we go. Oh, I think that, yes, I'm excited to chat. This is going to be amazing. Hi, Kate. How are you?
You.
Excellent.
So alarming when it kicks in.
I know. I was just kind of like, oh, there I am. Okay. Let's move that over a little bit. Yeah, so how are you doing is it raining? I'm assuming it's raining where you are because we're all of 40 minutes apart, but
It is cold
yeah,
and gloomy out there today.
it's like 12 degrees. And like, where did the summer go? I think it's supposed to warm up tomorrow, thankfully, but yeah.
Where did summer go?
I think we were supposed to get a whole bunch of rain this week, which I'm not too upset about because it's nice for all the plants and everything, but yeah, it's a little gloomy.
A little bit, a little bit.
Yeah.
It's
So
not
thank you
really.
so much for coming and chatting with me. This is so exciting. I absolutely adore your work and I have all your prints up in my kitchen and Likely Herbarium is such a great resource and this is so exciting. Yay.
You were.
So what's that?
I said you're too kind. You're too
Oh,
kind.
it's no, not at all. It's wonderful. I love your art style. And actually, I wanted to ask you about that. How did you get started on your art journey and what took you along that path?
Well, I don't know, I've been doodling since I was a kid, and um, my paternal grandmother was a watercolor painter, and I don't know, mom always encouraged a lot of creativity. So it's just been something I've always done. And I find it's a really good way to channel whatever I'm thinking about or feeling about. It's kind of like how I distill and amalgamate information in
Yeah.
the weirdest way.
Oh, that's amazing. I do the same, but for me, it's written. I'm a far better writer. My stick people are about the extent of my writing ability. My kids are really into it and they like doing drawing stuff and we do like YouTube channel stuff and watch a lot of Bob Ross and different things for inspiration and it's great. Yeah. That's so wonderful. So, how did you get started with the Likely Herbarium? What was your inspiration for that? It's such a lovely resource for yeah, I love how you've drawn the connections between the natural world and plants and magic. I've studied herbalism and I've learned about the different properties of different plants, but then to funnel it through the perspective of magic like that is so special. And all the sigils that you created for each of the plants are amazing and unique. And I was wondering, yeah, how did you get started on that project?
So, interestingly enough, I guess, maybe, I don't know, you tell me, but I actually have a couple of chronic pain disorders, and I've like always kind of leaned on my diet and things like ginger and
Yeah.
stories. And when I started this Instagram account, I guess it was about a year and a half ago. Yeah, it was January 2020.
Oh, cool.
Started like really leaning into distilling it even more than I had before. And there was sort of in the year leading up to it, there was a call back into the craft. So, like my mom, growing up, there was always tarot cards and rune stones and books on magic and stuff, and was always rather witchy, though she would probably never call herself a witch. Um, and there was just like a few overlapping calls to bring all of that to life and own it in a bigger way than I had before. So I started just posting drawings on the Instagram account, and then I think it was Scott Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs. I stumbled on it,
Yeah.
just went all the way down the road for it, and realized, like, I don't know, when you were a kid and you making mud pies and like running around with lupin blossoms and bleeding hearts and thinking about potions and those things, it all just kind of comes to life when you look at it through the right lens. that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think also getting back to that, I feel like when I was a kid, I had so much more direct access to magic. Like there weren't any of the blocks that I put on myself as an adult where, things had to be a certain way or I needed to have some kind of rational explanation for things. And so being able to channel that energy is so, well, magical because it brings you right back to that space where there's no blocks and there's just this kind of intuitive connection with plants in a really beautiful way. Oh, I love that so much. Oh, that's so great. Actually, we started our Instagram accounts around the same time because mine was the end of November in 2019. So that's really cool. I feel like maybe there was something happening around that time that just really pulled everybody in anticipation of all the craziness of the past year to kind of forge that creative connection and connection with other people who are passionate about the same things too. I've thought about that a lot actually, just because of the timing. It's interesting. Yeah.
Not only did we start the accounts at a similar time, but we live 40 minutes apart.
I know. Well, at that point, I was still in Halifax, but still, it's not far at all. Like, it's very, very close, next province over. So, yeah, that's really cool. So, how did you pick which plants to include?
It really just went with all the ones I was most curious about. Well, no, more accurately, I started asking more questions about the ones that were in my yard and nearby and common,
Yeah,
and then I just like, yeah, I leaned a lot on my own curiosity. Like I don't know if herbarium was necessarily a conscious thought until it was all done. Like
yeah, yeah,
knew I'd written a book, and really it was just distilling together like some of the folk history, and then leaning on some of the brilliant minds that have put the stuff together before, but putting it
yeah.
together its own way, like trying to layer on um, the extra things that were like really sparking my imagination.
Yeah, that's amazing. I ducked out of screen for a moment just to grab my copy. It wasn't as accessible as I thought in terms of my reach. But yeah, I love how you've set everything up here. Like you've got these gorgeous, gorgeous illustrations, which, as I mentioned, I have a ton up in my kitchen and I love reflecting on them because my herb cupboard is just above where the prints are. So it's really neat because I can look at, the descriptions of rose right before I'm pulling it out to use it in a recipe, and it just adds that extra layer of special connection, right? So, but you've got your absolutely gorgeous artwork here, and then I love how you've included all the different properties and like little details, and your writing is just amazing. And then I love that there's all the space here. I'm still writing everything out on note cards because I'm kind of anal about having it like just so I write into my book, which is so, it's a thing. But yeah, and I love that you've included space for that in here because you can add your own special touch and it becomes a bit of an herbal grimoire as well, which is super special. So I'm glad you left that space because it allows everybody to personalize it, which is so special. That's really great.
Really wanted it because there's no one single source of truth when it comes to these things.
Mm.
It's the
Yeah.
layers of everybody's individual experience that really
Mhm.
things more magical, but
Yeah.
you're not alone in not wanting to write in the book. I get a lot of that, like that most people can't bring themselves to do it, so they're sticking pieces of paper in. So I posted a couple pictures of me like, oh, here, I'll grab it.
Yeah, I think I remember that actually. It gave me more courage to start writing myself because I know you'd shared some photos of adding things to it, and it's I think it's an important step to add that personal stamp to the book, and I mean I'm heartened to know that I'm not alone in my kind of hesitance, but I think taking that first step is important because it makes the book your own, right, and adds that special kind of imprint of yourself, I guess.
All you really have to do is pick a plant you don't really like, and then
Hmm.
make a really big mistake on that page, and then the rest are all gold.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
that's perfect.
I didn't even write properly.
Yeah, yeah. I think it looks beautiful, but yeah, no, that's amazing. And I think like anything, it's like taking that first step and just starting, right? Like there's so much, I don't know about you, but I always feel this like trepidation and sense of, yeah, hesitancy. But then when I actually take that first step, it's so much better than I always think it's going to be, like, or at least my anxiety-ridden brain is telling me that it's going to be, oh, so scary, and then it's not. So it's good.
Bad. Now, Instagram is being a really big jerk, and I can't see you at all.
Oh no.
I'm gonna try smacking some buttons and see what happens.
Yeah, yeah. Someone was asking where we are based. So I am in Nova Scotia, really close to the border of New Brunswick, and Kate is in Moncton, which is a 40-minute drive from me. And in between us, we have Sackville and yeah, a few other little communities. So once the border opens up, we will absolutely have to have a coffee date, tea date, because that's going to be amazing.
Your mom actually lives in the same town as you.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you mentioned your niece was born recently as well. So yeah, oh, that's so exciting.
6 weeks ago.
Oh my goodness, wow. It's amazing. I can't believe we're already in July. Like, I'm not quite sure how that happened. I feel like it should still be January. Like, time is such a fluid thing right now. It's really, yeah, it's different for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely doing that moving faster and slower thing at the same.
Yeah,
I don't
simultaneously.
know it's July, but also, holy crap, this has been a long year.
Yeah, it really has. Yeah, it's amazing. It's a really strange feel for time. Um, so I wanted to ask you a bit about the Likely Tarot too, which you just launched on Kickstarter. Oh my God, it's amazing. I love the art concept that you had for that. So maybe you can tell me a little bit about, yeah, what you chose to include with different cards and yeah, after that, I'd love to go through because I know you have some correspondences where some of the minor arcana and major arcana, there's like through lines with the cards, which is so beautiful. So, I mean, maybe we can start with your inspiration for the deck and how you chose which animals to include for different cards and things. And yeah, I'd love to know more.
So it all started with some spreadsheets. I'm only half joking.
I totally get that.
I ordered this book called Tarot Correspondences. I'm gonna walk away again.
Nice.
You're welcome.
No, it's great because I'm like bobbing off and now. Oh, yeah, yeah, that's on my wish list on Amazon actually. I don't always purchase my books through Amazon, but I keep my wish list there because I can keep tabs of everything. And that was I have the Llewellyn correspondence book, but not that one yet. And I was curious. Yeah, it's a good reference.
Yes, it's very, very like dense,
Oh, I love that.
table heavy.
Yeah.
But so I started noticing, I think when I first got the book and opened it up, and this was recommended to me by Accidental Bruja.
Yeah, Paula.
Yeah. I'm trying to give her a handle in case not everybody knows what Paula is, but everybody should
Yeah.
know, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, so Accidental Bruja. Paula is a wealth of knowledge and beautiful photography and just a beautiful human, so definitely check her out for sure.
And so I opened the book. The first page I opened it to, it had plant correspondences.
Oh, amazing.
And I had before I started the tarot project, I had started rereading some books on Hermeticism, and I don't even know how a light went off.
Mm-hmm.
I started charting all of it out. So I have the Llewellyn book as well, and a couple of other bits and bobs floating around here. But I started a bunch of spreadsheets because I got really curious. And also, I
Yeah.
find a lot of things tend to neglect the minor arcana. So
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see what the red thread was
Mm-hmm.
that goes through everything and like suss out more of the patterns, and it just like from the exercise of illustrating and writing the herbarium, I knew even like the absolute worst cases I would walk away with a whole lot more meaning. I'm like,
Yeah.
hero. So like even if it started
Yeah.
to kind of prerogative, like I want to know more.
Yeah.
But then realizing like all of these archetypes and patterns, because there's I was just looking at it. There's the, what do you call it? I'm drawing a blank. It's just because we're here and people.
I laugh because I get that 100%. I always have something on the tip of my tongue, and then as soon as someone asks me, it's like, poof, it's gone.
The tree of life, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, my mother weaves trees of life.
Oh my gosh.
Why would I forget? Anyway, So then, yeah, go to spreadsheets and the patterns started coming out. Now, like there's multiple correspondences for every
Mm-hmm.
aspect of each card. So once I got like through the point of making, I think like 7 or 8 tabs worth of spreadsheets and thinking about
Yeah.
it, just started pulling from what I was getting out of like the overlap in the systems, because it's like
Yeah.
just like Rider Waite and Pamela Coleman did something really amazing, but that's not all there was to the history of
Yeah.
it, the perspective of it. So what are different ways to pull out more of those layers was
Mm-hmm.
where I was coming from. So I could have organized this better too. But even just in the end, where, oh, the Eight of Swords, I guess
Oh, I love that.
we're in a mood. But so the dandelion is from the Wheel of Fortune, and the Order
Yeah.
from the Lovers.
Oh, I love that.
So like then you intersperse the element of air on it and take the numerology aspect of it, and then there's different angles to see the same
Yeah.
and maybe from one day to the next it's the orchid over the dandelion or the feather or the air that pops out more, and that
Yeah.
helps you listen in a different way. I've been having a lot of fun playing with the prototype every day just to make
Yeah.
sure where I want it to be.
Yeah. Well, I've loved all the photos that you've posted rather, not pointed, but what I love about it is there's so much depth to each of the cards. Like, as you said, with the Eight of Swords, there's, like you mentioned, 3 different elements. Well, there's air, there's also the feathers, and then the 2 plants, the dandelion, and forgive me for blanking on the lovers correspondence. Yeah, there's so many different things you can draw from, because I find I love Rider-Waite-Smith, and that's the first system that I started reading tarot with, but it's got a very set number of images that are associated, and so the meanings pop out really clearly, which is great. But sometimes when I'm doing a reading, there's another aspect of that particular card that I need to draw from. And when you have something that's so rich with imagery like that, it allows you to expand your perspective on the card in a really amazing way, right? It's just not just one interpretation. It's many different things that come into play, which is amazing. That's so good. Oh my gosh. Oh, what a sweetheart.
This is Basil.
Oh,
He just
I think, oh my goodness, my pup is downstairs. Pippin, I think he's probably angling for food in some capacity. If someone has anything, he's like so food driven. But oh, what a sweetheart. It's so nice to see him kind of in person.
so wet though. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So like the Nine of Swords, even like that one has such strong imagery through
Yeah.
all Rider-Waite, or Rider-Waite inspired decks, but
Yeah,
it was kind of accidental. I wasn't thinking about it. I was putting the card together, but I ended up with all of the feathers kind of horizontal, and then the more I explored it, the more it kind of like came to mind. So like there's that, it's so dark, it's so heavy, and there's such a push in the skin, but the card is really like intending to ask us whether it's a self-imposed state for the part, which is true in the images. It's just the heaviness. So like it would take me forever. I probably won't find it before we're done, but
yeah. No, that makes so much sense, because I don't see tarot as, like, a lot of cards get a bad rap for being, you know, challenging. I guess like the Devil, Death card, the 9 and 10 of Swords, the 3 of Swords, but I don't see any card in tarot as being inherently good or bad. Like, there's aspects to all of them. So being able to access that and look at that from that perspective makes so much sense, right? It opens up the understanding and perspective on the card in a really beautiful way.
like it's supposed to be more about the questions we ask ourselves out of the other side, rather than it being a set set definitions. It's actually
amazing.
orchid. So there's the lovers that amplifies the choice, the duality, and then chili pepper from the tower.
Oh, I love that.
So like,
yeah.
Really, the choice is really yours in the moment, kind of that as a universal sort of truth. Even the three
Yeah.
words, it's
Oh, I
actually,
love that.
it's the beat from the world.
Yep.
Mugwort, I'm gonna have a moment.
Yeah, that mugwort is so beautiful because it's such a soothing herb. Like I know it's often used in dream pillows and different things, and so there's that calming and soothing association, which I think is really important for that card because that's one of those that it tends to be fairly charged for people, myself included, at times, depending, right? And so I feel like having that element is really great to kind of add that nurturing aspect to it, which is really beautiful.
It's yeah, it's been really fun seeing. I guess even so there's actually a rhythm to the way that the correspondences work out. It's like in the minor arcana, you'll see that
Mhm.
go ace 2 3 4. There, it'll like um, or if we do 7 8 9 because that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah,
The orchid from the lovers repeats through 7 8 9, and
yeah.
then a new one will come in as you're going through. So there's this because each part of it is the journey and exploration and like expansion
Yeah.
towards like our ultimate selves at the same time. You can
Mhm.
see how there's phases and then new layers
Mhm.
to go through it.
Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, because one of the things that fascinates me so much about tarot is that it tells a story, whether you're moving through the major arcana or the minor arcana. Like there's correspondences between the different numbers, but then there's also correspondences for each of the suits. And it's like a journey from 1 through 10 and then going through the court cards. And I love that it's that progression, right? And you go through different phases and different journeys in life, and there's things that you carry through with you before you transition to something else. So I absolutely love that you've created those building blocks throughout the cards because it really draws all the elements together in a really cohesive way, which I love that because the tarot deck functions as a whole as much as it functions as individual cards, which is so special. Oh, that's so cool. And I know that you have sigils or sigils on the cards as well. So what was your process for creating those?
That that started back before the herbarium even started. It was the same idea of just weaving and distilling down what I was looking at and learning. And when I first started making them, it used to be the consonants and
Yeah.
stripping down to the single consonants, and then using different. So like if it was sharp or harsh, there would be more straight lines, and if it was more flowing, it would be more moving, I guess, more wavy lines. And then eventually I just stopped thinking about it altogether. So I don't even really know what,
Yeah.
what to do anymore with
Oh,
each
that's beautiful.
of like for the minor arcana to make it a little easier for everyone. There's a core piece like for the swords.
Hmm.
There's a core piece for
Oh,
it.
lovely.
There's like a counting
Yeah.
that's used across them.
Hmm.
Yeah, so like
Oh, very cool.
they're going to be in the guidebook as well, like above
Oh, I love that.
for each card to make it a little easier. And I like sometimes just writing down the sigil and putting it in my pocket and carrying it through the day to
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
keep.
that's very cool. Yeah, that's such a great process. So, the guidebook, what has been your approach with that? Like, how has it all come together? I love that you're including the sigils as well. Like, that's such a cool component. But yeah, so what's your approach been for that? Like, are you doing each card at a time, or is it coming as it flows, or like what's your approach? I'm so curious.
Since I have all those spreadsheets,
Can I just say how much I love that because I have such an ordered brain in that regard. So yeah, spreadsheets are my best friend. I love being able to lay everything out. And as you said before, the patterns come through that way too, because you can see once it's all down on paper or on the screen, you can kind of, I don't know about you, but I feel like I can see it more clearly in terms of how things work together.
when I first started playing with it, Anthony was teasing me a little bit, saying I'm making it a little too complicated and I needed to just trust the process. I need to see the Venn diagram before I can
Mhm.
really lean into it. And I mean, by the time I was through the second suit of the minor arcana, I was like, I've definitely got it.
Yeah.
For writing the guidebook, it's really just been um, a good chunk of automatic writing based off of the spreadsheet. putting in all of the correspondences that I found and highlighting the ones, especially that were selected through the deck. So there's
Yeah.
like those rhythms and patterns show through in that as well. Now, confession, I actually have my document open on my screen over here.
Ooh, that's exciting.
I have the 6 to the King of Pentacles left to right, and then the guidebook is done.
Oh my goodness, congrats. That's huge.
It's a, well, yeah, it's a 45-page document right now.
Wow, that's amazing. Congrats. That's a lot of work. Yeah, amazing. I'm so excited to read it. I love all of the insights that you've shared on your posts too about the different cards and everything else. And I I have to say the Phoenix that you have on your death card is like I adore that so much. I love that symbol of rebirth and renewal that particular image brings. And so the different animals that you've included, oh, I meant to ask you too about you have a 79th card that you've created called the Creator, right? And I love that you've depicted a crow on that card because, as you wrote, like those are really misunderstood but really beautiful and powerful animals. And I'd love to know more about how that card came into being and what that process was like for you.
So I actually only completed that one right before the Kickstarter launched.
Mm.
I Yeah, I needed the time and space to finish the deck and really think about um, how it was coming together. But then, okay, so like my LikelyTale logo is the crow
Mhm.
on it's a distorted plant, but there's a morning glory flower. So my my grandmother's favorite flower was the morning glory, and mom and I
Um,
plant morning glories, kind of like keeping her around. We actually have a tattoo of morning glories on our ankles.
oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And my grandfather used to call me his crow, because
Oh,
I ride around in the cherry apple red Chev and peek at the
oh
window,
my
pointed
goodness,
at
that's amazing.
here.
Oh, gorgeous.
So, taking the morning glory. Actually, okay, there's another story here too.
Yeah.
My mom's friend Leslie owns a property just outside of town, and she's a potter. I went out to her and I wanted to get her to create something special for the Kickstarter. And we wandered around looking at the plants that were available in the yard and double checking against the meanings when we didn't know what they were and all of that. And Lily of the Valley coming up and looking into it and seeing that it was really strongly corresponded to heightened mental powers and friendship and community and that
Yeah.
intoxicating scent. And it's just one
Mhm.
especially beautiful little plant sitting in the forest
Yeah.
thing. Um, between the mental aspect and friends and community, and like the idea that none of it would be possible without friends and community, it just
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful.
felt like it needed to happen. And yeah, crows have different meaning depending on like what um, chunk of folklore or system you apply to it. But the one that always resonated the most with me is that they are messengers and guides for
Yeah.
one state to the next. It's often like guiding a soul to its proper resting place or its phase of life, and there's a wisdom to them, and they're also very communal animals. Like
Mhm.
if you've ever had the joy of experiencing like a proper murder of crows roosting in the winter,
Yeah.
and there's like 200 of them in the trees, and you can see
Oh, amazing.
the sentinels around the edges. It's really quite fast.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, from what I understand, they are very communal birds and they have that sense of family and belonging. And it's, oh, I love all of those elements. That's fantastic. Oh, I'm so excited. This is, yeah. And uh, yeah, all of the elements that you've included in this deck are so special. And I noticed too, you have a bunch of add-on items that you've added for the Kickstarter, like a custom sigil print. How, so do you say it's sigil or sigil?
I say sigil.
Sigil, yeah. That, yeah, that's, Yeah, that's awesome. So Sigil, what goes into creating the custom Sigil prints?
So for the intent for those is it, more of a meditative channeling. So it's just listening for what needs to come together. There's so many elements that I have to build on now.
Mm.
I'm drawing a card and leaning on the sigil from that card to
Yeah.
build on for the person. My intent is to I'm trying to be careful here. So be done. But my intent is
Yeah.
to write on the back of a line or two of the intent of the sigil to send with the person. It's going to be like a fully blind process, so I'm kind of excited about them.
Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, that's amazing. And I think this whole project is amazing. Like yeah, I'm so in awe of all the work that you put into it and all the thought, and it's just, yeah, I'm very excited. I'm trying not to fangirl too much, but yeah. I also noticed that you have the limited edition High Priestess print that you're doing as well. So what's the size of that? Is that like a 4x6 or
So I said 4x5, but I realized that she needs to go. I said she. They need to go on a different kind of paper. So
Oh, okay.
yeah. Again, I run a print shop as well out of the house.
Oh, that's amazing.
This is the High Priestess,
Oh, gorgeous.
which is pulling from a print that I had during the Oracle deck
The
campaign.
Oracle, yeah, that's the Oracle print. Oh, it's beautiful.
Actually, Halloween. Yeah, Halloween last year. It was the full moon. And
Yeah.
I stepped out after my ritual bath, and there was this rustling in the trees behind the house, and about 40 or 50 crows go flying.
Oh
And
my goodness.
out of that, this huge owl comes and lands in the tree. Like it was so close. My arms were just like 15 feet long. I could have
Oh my goodness.
they're staring at each other for a long time. And my mom and I think it was my paternal grandmother that came to
Yeah.
visit. So, but the 4x5 is based on the idea of it being this paper, but this
Yeah.
paper brings out vivid dark colors a whole lot better. So it'll be a
Yeah.
5 by print, long story long.
Wow, amazing. That's great. That's such lovely paper because I have a couple of your prints and I think it's that same paper and the texture and the finish is so lovely. Like it's really, oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. That's such a special story too. It's amazing when animals come through as guides like that. Like I really it's such a strong presence of that person who's passed and it's such a gift to have that experience, you know. That's really cool.
It was a really intense couple of
Yeah.
minutes. My hair
Oh,
stand.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, and owls are not known as being laid back animals either. Like I feel like they have this inherent intensity to them. So that's really cool. I
This
love
app
it.
dive bombed the roosting group
Oh my goodness.
of crows, cleared them out, and then just came and hung it.
Yeah.
Like what a moment that was.
My goodness. Yeah. And well, with the mass exodus of all the crows leading up to that too, like that's huge. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I've seen a couple of owls. We were actually walking around through a wooded area in Victoria, and it was the middle of the day, so I wasn't expecting to see one. And then I just happened to look up at the tree, and there was like a little baby owl on a branch that was just kind of sitting there looking at us. Maybe it wasn't a baby, maybe it was a full adult, or but it was so high up that we could see it clearly just because we happened to look at that particular spot, but it was so well blended with the trees, but I wasn't expecting it to be out in the daytime, so it was a really special treat to have happened upon it. It was, yeah, they're beautiful animals. Um, so the other thing I was curious about, I've got my little page of notes here, the incense, that because you created that yourself, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, tell me more about that. I love burning incense and the little cones are especially lovely. So yeah, what goes into creating incense and what are the scents that you included or if any? And yeah, I'm so curious.
So um, it's a loose incense, so it like burns back on certain wax warmers will work or the
Yeah.
charcoal. But the there is, I'm still getting it just right.
Yeah.
But there's elderflower, hibiscus, mugwort,
Mm,
lavender, and I'm pretty sure basil's going to end up in there. I've
yeah.
done I've done it with and without, and it's just a little bit.
Hmm.
It has more of the punch that we're looking
Yeah,
for.
yeah.
It's to pull from a lot of the the feel and the essence of the creator card.
Hmm. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I find whenever I'm crafting anything, there's always that transition stage where I'm needing to just kind of tweak things a little bit because it needs a little more of this or a little less of that. So that's such a cool process. I love it. And then your mom created the moon pendulums, right?
Good.
They're absolutely stunning. So oh my gosh, what went into her creative process? Like, because there's so many different elements that are included because it's wire wrapping around the crystal, right? And then, yeah, it's
But
beautiful.
she was making bigger versions of them.
Yeah.
It was just like, Mom, you're making me some of these
Yeah.
into pendulums. So her creative process was really her daughter telling her what to do. But she,
Oh, beautiful. What's the round stone in the middle there? Because it's amethyst on either side, right?
yeah,
Or am I wrong? Yeah.
and there's hematite,
Oh, gorgeous.
and then these quartz crystal points for the actual pendulum.
Oh my goodness, that's stunning.
And she does, I forget what you call it, patina. She puts a patina on.
Okay.
She's kind of,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
she's
'cause,
really an artist to
yeah.
begin with. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like, we need to include Mom in this
Yeah.
project, and this feels so perfect. Also,
Mhm.
apparently, a lot of this is just based off of the tattoos I have, and I don't have a shirt you can see, but I have one right here. It's like
Oh, gorgeous.
I killed on and stuff.
That's amazing. And I love the correspondence with moon cycles too, because I feel like there's a lot of power in that. I've started leaning into moon cycles over the past year, I'd say. And, even just following the new and full moon cycles, and I'm starting to incorporate some of the other things in between too. And it's just, it's such a powerful process. Like you think about it, and waves are dictated by the moon. And if huge bodies of water can be influenced like that, we're what, 70% give or take water, so it makes sense that we would be influenced too, and that's such a cool component of that.
I
Oh,
think
amazing.
the simple, the simple overlap too with it, with fall
Hmm.
cycles, is I kind of always think of it as like a long, slow, deep breath in, and then the release afterwards. Like
Hmm.
for my non-witchy friends, that's how I like to explain it. So it's just
Yeah,
corresponding month by month to
yeah,
what do I
absolutely.
need to let go of, and instead of it just being like New Year's resolutions and
Yeah, yeah. There's so much sense in that, and there's so much sense into leaning into cycles, period, whether it's seasonal cycles through the wheel of the year, or if you're not using the wheel of the year, just shifting with cycles, and the same with the moon, and then astrological transits are a whole other thing. But there's so much to explore there as well, and it's fascinating to start incorporating these different elements into a tarot practice, for example, or witchcraft practice, or there's so much to study in all of these areas. Like I feel like I could explore it till the day I die and I'll never reach the end point, which makes me really happy because I love when there's more to learn, it's super exciting.
I couldn't agree more.
And then I get to put it all in a spreadsheet and see how it all ties together, which makes me so happy. I have my Saturn in Virgo, and I swear that's why I have that spreadsheet tendency, maybe because I have all these other air placements. So I'm like, where is this coming from? And then I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. um, So your handmade sigil stones too. Can you tell me more about that? Because I noticed that you incorporated a bunch of herbs, and there's a whole selection of different sigils, and that's amazing.
So this actually kind of came out of trying to find a way. So the right back in October, November last year, I tried to I did a Kickstarter for an Oracle deck.
Hmm.
Like get funded.
Which was a sin because it is an absolutely phenomenal deck, and actually we'll talk about this after, but I noticed that you have that as a stretch goal for this project too. So we have to get it backed because it's amazing. I mean, back to that stretch level because it's an incredible deck. Yeah.
The real the real lesson in that is don't launch a Kickstarter campaign with 1 week's notice just before Christmas. I mean, if any,
Christmas is a tough time, honestly. Like, yeah.
but just like I think it was actually after the owl came to visit in the tree. I just needed to try and do it. I
Yeah.
had to, but then in getting ready to do the tarot deck campaign, a lot of the more avid supporters of the Oracle deck were like, please tell me that this is going to be possible. And I really wanted to find a way to bring some of that to life in a way that I could no matter what happened. So this is like,
Yeah.
what can I make with my own two darn hands? And like I did create the prototype deck here at home, but it's really not the best experience. And there's really no way to make a good deck at home. So after a lot of trial and error and trial and error and trial and error.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Also, don't use resin with your hair down. So most of these plants are
Oh, beautiful.
from
Oh my goodness, look at that.
so
Oh, gorgeous.
this is
That's stunning.
the videos, right?
Yeah.
We'll focus.
Oh,
So
that's gorgeous.
the sigils are out of the herbarium.
Mm-hmm.
These are all from the herbarium as well.
Yeah.
It's a very tiny.
Oh my goodness, look at that.
They're actually like I can't do this quite right. Actually, you can see on the deck there where I'm working.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
It's like very tweezery.
Oh my gosh, I would imagine, yeah, because they're not huge and you've got so many different plant elements in there and oh, I love that.
And then they have to be sanded.
Yeah.
But they're very genuinely fun to play with. Like
Yeah.
even watching them cast and seeing whether it's the plant or the sigil that lands.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. Did you print that bag yourself?
Yeah, I do.
Oh my goodness. I have zero printing experience or materials or anything, so I'm so in awe of, I mean, I know you have an at-home printing press that you use, and so it makes sense that that would be a continuation of that, but that's beautiful. It's really, really gorgeous. I love the idea of using the resin pieces like that. I know Jamie Sawyer has her tarot tiles, and they're on a very long wish list for me because yeah, they're beautiful. But I love that idea of having something in a bag and then pulling it out like that. Like it's very different from using cards, and it's really special in its own right. And I love that it goes both ways. You're looking either at the herb or at the sigil that's on the back. That's a really cool process.
They're
So
they, they
oh,
was
sorry, go ahead.
makes me think of like the bag of rune stones my mom had when I was younger, and you just like the warm feeling of it in your hand and it comes out and
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Oh, that's amazing. My younger daughter is really into Norse mythology. So a few years ago, I got her a rune set, and she's got it in a bag, and she tends to gravitate more towards that than tarot, despite my best efforts. I'm kidding, sort of. But we've studied so much Norse mythology and also Greek and Roman and Egyptian. But having that connection to the stories that are behind it and everything, I think has been really helpful for her as well as a practice. But yeah, there's something to be said in just the sound of the tiles clinking together and then, you know, figuring out which one you're going to pull and the meaning behind it. And that's really cool. So is there a booklet that comes with the tiles or the runestones or the
Yeah,
sigil rather?
I'm still yeah, there is, and it's
Yeah.
printed here and hand bound.
Oh, amazing.
Example to share just yet because I've only gotten
Yeah.
I gave it away. But if you yeah, it pulls from again, the properties in the herbarium, but then doing sort of a focal message. So it's definitely way more of a warm hug with a gentle
Mhm.
sometimes, like
Yeah,
with the pepper, I think is probably one of the strongest ones
yeah, yeah,
for banishment. Maybe like you really need
yeah.
to go today kind of thing. Uh,
Yeah.
and the sigil's reprinted on the page with it as well.
Oh,
The
amazing.
is like so I've got this piece of paper because I'm trying to figure out how to lay it out again
Yeah,
and
yeah.
find it. But if you imagine like this side,
Oh, amazing. I
or
love that because it fits in your pocket, so you can just take it on the go and use it anywhere. Like, I love the idea of going for a wander through the woods and then pulling it out and seeing what you come up with, and you've got the little guide. And because there's already so much nature energy infused in them with the plants that you've included, so to me it feels like there's that really strong connection, even in the middle of winter when everything's dead and buried in in snow. It's such a great opportunity to have that point of connection, right? Like that's amazing.
exactly. And like
Yeah.
that would some perfectly good reason to go running around grabbing all of the blooms out of and neighbors aren't watching you picking all the dandelion flowers that they really have on your front lawn.
You know, it's fascinating to me because when my girls were really small, before my son was even born, or maybe he was just a newborn, but my eldest was like maybe 3 or 4 at the time, so very little. And we were driving by the library in St. John's. We lived in St. John's, Newfoundland at the time, and it was just this sea of yellow dandelions. And she looked out the window and she said, "Mama, that's beautiful." And I was like, you know what? It is so beautiful. And it shifted my perception of dandelions forevermore. And then I did an herbal apprenticeship on Vancouver Island. And I was like, not only are these flowers beautiful and sunshiny, but they're also packed with all kinds of amazing nutrition and sustenance. And now I feel so excited whenever I pass someone's lawn and they have dandelions because I'm like, yes. And then every time I walk by a pristine green lawn, I'm like, no, where's your dandelions? That's so boring. Like, but there's so many plants that are classified as weeds that are so amazing and so nourishing. Like nettles are in that category too. And it's just, it's opened up my perspective on, or my perception of plants in a whole new way. Yeah, and I have a recipe on my blog for a dandelion syrup for pancakes, and actually have the dandelion flowers included, I think, in the batter as well. And I just love that way of incorporating those plants that are, we were living in Victoria at the time, and so I was out at dawn, like harvesting in the middle of a field that, hadn't been sprayed, but like trying to find my corner of the city that, was untouched. And then we made the syrup and we made the pancakes, and it was just fun doing that with the kids, and finding those spots. And yeah.
And it's every so I we only moved into this house. I guess it'll be 2 years in September, but
Okay.
on either side of, so I'm like still working on reestablishing my gardens and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
both of our neighbors are retired, and both of them are like the reseed and like, it's just perfectly manicured
Yeah.
lawn. Right?
Yeah.
And as a way to see what I could get out of our yard, I put mulch along. We have a fence around the
Yeah.
chain. I put mulch around all of the edges, just kind of like with the idea of the dogs running around
Mm-hmm.
and trying to cover it up. But I was really just trying to see what I could get out of the yard, and then started like sculpting them into it. And the neighbors come to the fence to say hi to the dogs and stuff, and I'll just be like, "Hey, did you see all the wild strawberry that's growing over there that you totally think is a weed but definitely isn't? Oh,
Oh my goodness.
pretty buttercups." And like,
Oh,
you know that self heal, and they kind of like look at me like I'm insane, but they're also filling out on like,
yeah.
take care of that pile of weeds over there. Like, yeah, I'm going to cultivate them into a field.
I know. Well, anytime I see a natural lawn where things are allowed to grow, I mean, it just makes me so excited because there's so much to be had in all of these, so-called weeds. And we just moved into this house at the end of October. And so, I mean, we came for house hunting in August. So there was some, tons of flowers and things, but we weren't really paying attention from the perspective of like, we're just wandering through as a potential house we might buy. So I wasn't really paying attention. But this year, There's a planting box in the back. So we've done some chilies, we've done some tomatoes, and then we did some basil plants, but we decided not to go too nuts this year. And we've just kind of, it's been a journey of exploration to see what's here, because apparently one of the people that used to live in this house was an avid gardener and was like very conscientious about his planting and everything else. And you can tell because there's a lot of really beautiful planting, and we've got lupins in the back, we've got a rose bush, we've got, you know, there's all these amazing plants that are just coming up, and some of them have spread. So like in cracks in the patio in the back, like it's all stones, but in between some of the stones there's like a random lupin poking up, and I love that. Like I love,
Yeah.
lack of symmetry and the way that things are just kind of coming up. And we got so we planted our box, and my husband's got big plans for along our driveway to put like these big, you know, the big for lack of a better description, like those keg holder big pot things, metal things, I don't know, that's how he described it to me, but they're like big pots that are metal and like kind of like an oval shape.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Like a bunch of, yeah, the description, it was the worst description ever. But next year we're going to start planting with the kids and like figure out a line of them along our driveway. We don't actually own a car yet, so there's plenty of space. But yeah, and figuring out what to plant and what level of sun we have and everything else. But for this year, it's just been great to see what's there already. And there's a little strawberry plant in the back, and like we went to Calling Corners and got these lollipops that have seeds in the end. So we've planted those in random spots in the backyard, and we'll see, you know, what comes up. But I just love that kind of more organic approach to figuring out what's there. And there was like a whole row of buttercups along the stone patio in the back. And so my husband made sure that he didn't cut them. He like took our manual lawnmower and just like went beside them. So we have this little growth of buttercups, and the kids are super excited, and it's like become this whole thing. And yeah, it's nice to have that, you know?
So much fun. So like there's a yew tree by the front door.
Mm-hmm.
And a burning bush, and then like, so I'm looking out the window because this is sitting in the basement, and there's a window right above me, which has like this weird little nestled garden. Like somebody put a Masago pine in front of a bunch of other things. Huge, but I have this like little pocket of like I want to put little hidden things in it. But I discovered like witches' bells, and there's vines underneath there. There's oh my god, what's the name of the vine? Anyway, there's a whole whack of things, and we've got this giant pine tree, birch, ash, and maple, and they happen to be like in the cardinal directions. And after we were here for a couple of months, and I'm like kind of crawling around in the ground everywhere, I go out to my partner and I'm like, I think a witch lived here. Like there's just
it makes sense with all the alignment of everything, you know? That's amazing.
We're just missing a couple of key things, like clothes.
Oh my goodness. And wouldn't it be fascinating if it wasn't technically a witch, but the person who lived there just happened to have that instinct to plant things in specific spaces? Like either way, it's so exciting. I love that so much. I love to plant, like there's certain herbs that I work with regularly because I make salves and teas and different things. And so I'm really curious to see what might grow in different locations, and to set up a little mini medicinal herb garden to start cultivating some of the plants that I use most often. I tend to order a lot from, well, we were living on the West Coast before, and I discovered Harmonic Arts, and they have basically every dried plant known to man, and they harvest sustainably and have a really great approach. So I tend to rely on them for a lot of my plant materials. But it would be so exciting to plant that garden, and the kids love digging in the dirt and being a part of that whole process. So I think it would be really fun. Like it's been years since we had the last time we had a backyard garden was when we lived in St. John's, and we left there in 2014. So it's been a long time since we've had access to this kind of space. So it's very exciting to start thinking about what to plant and where to plant it, and how to kind of, like what you said about cardinal directions and finding special spaces for things is also, I think, an important part of that whole gardening process, right? That's amazing.
Even just getting dirt under your fingernails goes a lot.
Oh my goodness, yes. I get so happy when the kids come in and they're just covered in dirt because they've been doing cartwheels on the lawn, or they've been, you know, crawling through the grass with our dog, or doing whatever, you know, like it's such a great, we actually have a big open, it's a park, but it's basically a big green space on the other side of our neighbors. And it's so great because there's a lamppost in the middle, and then there's 4 paths that kind of converge in the center, but there's all this open grass that the kids can throw around a frisbee or do whatever. So it creates an extra added kind of open space for them to play, which has been really fun. And it's so close that I have no problem with them just kind of wandering over and doing their own thing. And it's not something I would have felt as comfortable with when we lived on the 12th floor of an apartment building in Halifax, but now where they can just walk out the door, it makes a difference, you know, like, yeah, especially right now. Yeah, it's cool to have that access to outdoors, you know, it makes sense. We actually have a car rental lined up next weekend, and we're going to find some places close by to us that we can go and hike with the kids. It's supposed to be pouring rain, but I figure, you know, we've all got rain boots, so it works.
That can be just so much fun. Jumping in puddles
More fun.
is still fun when you're an adult.
Oh, it is. And I still remember when the kids were toddlers and we lived in St. John's in one of the row houses downtown, and there's like a little parking lot close by to us that had the best puddles. And the girls and Armand would just get into their rain boots and their raincoats, and they would just go and puddle jump. And it was the best thing. There's so much joy associated. And yeah, I think I've got a lot to learn from them as an adult in terms of reclaiming some of that, you know. It's yeah, we get kind of
Last
into
weekend,
the adult phase.
thunderstorms, and there was like rain warnings and stuff, but it just missed us. Like it hit
Yeah.
your side of the river, but not here. And
Yeah.
it was like during the really hot days. I was so disappointed. Like I've needed to
I know.
rainstorm for years now. It's gonna happen this summer at some point. Dang it.
I know. I was so looking forward to the thunderstorm because I used to get those a lot when I lived in Alberta growing up. And I look forward to it so much because it was, you know, it was spectacular, and the sound and the noise and, well, noise and sound is the same, but also all the lightning and just you could feel the change in the pressure as well. And it just, we didn't get as much rain there. So I really, you know, craved it. I still love the rain, even though, you know, we get it a ton here, or at least a lot more. But yeah, there's something about that thunderstorm experience, and it bypassed us as well. Like we could hear some of the thunder, but we didn't really see any of it. I was so sad. Yeah, because it's special, especially when you don't get it, you know, like it's, yeah, helps you appreciate it. So, back to your phenomenal deck. I wanted to ask, so there's some stretch goals that you set up for your Kickstarter, the rose gold edging, which have you passed that point yet, or is it right on the cusp? I think we did. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I was trying to remember, and I seem to recall that you'd sent out notification about that, because rose gold edging, I love that you picked that. That's such a great contrast color for edging. It's just beautiful. And then you also have a kitchen poster that you had mentioned as well, which is super exciting. So what plants did you include on that?
So it's not done yet.
Okay.
But I've done a couple of, I've been playing around and drafting them because it's something that I wanted to add to the shop, but so it's definitely going to have a good chunk of the plants that are in the Sigil stone set. Is most of them, yeah, most of them are edible.
Yeah.
I might not eat birch, but
yeah.
we're good with and you, but the rest of them. But just like commonly used herbs and plants, and like a couple of others just to spark the imagination. Like horsetail is often grows either in our yards or near to them, and is a really, really good anti-inflammatory, calling back on other aspect, but it'll be in the same style as the deck and the herbarium itself too.
Yeah. It's so nice to have that reference point for your kitchen too, like just to put up on the wall and then have that quick reference guide, because there's so much nutrients and support in those plants. Like you mentioned horsetail, it's absolutely amazing, and there's so many different plants that are often used for culinary purposes but are actually really nurturing in other aspects as well. So it's really awesome.
The idea of, like, I like to think of it as, like, my partner doesn't necessarily think about any of these things to begin with, but I like the idea of him having a poster available to be like, man, I need a little bit more soothing in my day. I'll put some extra basil in here, or dissolve of the horsetail, or I need to fucking forget about my day. I'll put ginger in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My partner too, he's not into any of the herbal stuff so much. Like he's really great in the kitchen, but he doesn't necessarily look at it in the same perspective. It's really funny because I have a valerian and skullcap tea that blend that I make that's really great when I'm dealing with anxiety late at night, and it's super soothing. And you know, there's this whole thing where valerian kind of smells like dirty socks for a lot of people, including him. So he's always like turning up his nose whenever I brew it. But for me, it has such a soothing association because I know that it's going to calm my brain and give me that soothing. And so it's it's so interesting how for one person something can be a total turnoff, but then for someone else it's so nurturing. And when we were doing our training, it was so interesting because you were saying that earlier we were talking about herbs and stuff, and they can have different responses for different people too. Because with valerian, we had this test with our course where we had it every night for a week, and we were supposed to log like how it helped our sleep or how it influenced us. And one person in our group, and I think there's a small percentage of the population that this is true for, was totally wired. So for one person, it's nourishing and can help you sleep, and then for someone else, it has the opposite effect. So it's really fascinating with that. But yeah, like you, I'm hoping that once I get that poster up, that will help him connect to some of these plants in a different way.
Just like the idea of creating a space for anyone and everyone to infuse a little bit of intention into things that they're doing,
Yeah.
like spicing a sauce. Why?
Yeah.
There's no reason why you couldn't infuse that in a variety of ways. I like that idea too. There was that one person that was really wired, and
Yeah.
pulling it back to the idea there's no singular source of truth for these things. There's just like the in the folklores and the like different cultures have different interpretations, but there's always like this overlap, and
Yeah.
being able to insert our experiences and truths onto those as well.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's so interesting because I feel like everyone's experience, whether it's witchcraft or it's magic or it's working with herbs, is unique, right? So like my eldest and I are obsessed with cilantro. I love it. I can't get enough. And my younger daughter, for her, it tastes like soap. And I know that that's like a genetic thing for people, but it's so interesting how even within our family, we're so divided in terms of what we really feel gravitated towards and then are really resisting, right? So it's fascinating to look at that. But like you said, there's a through line with the energetics of a lot of these herbs and the way that they're used and applied. And even in terms of stories and myths, like it's fascinating to me with having, I mean, because I feel like that's an extension of plants too, because there's a lot of oral traditions that are passed down in different cultural backgrounds around different herbs and plants. And it's fascinating to me. Different mythology will have different associations with things, but there's also that through line. And you think of how far removed different cultures are, but there's still that same association and connection with a specific plant or the story behind a plant or the association. And that's always fascinated me because there is almost like this universal knowledge that like underpins these different elements, which is so fascinating and kind of magical in and of itself.
That was
so cool.
like totally the part of writing the herbarium that I got lost in. Like it blew my mind in a few different places. It might have been lotus and water lily, like they're very close cousins, if not the same. Like,
Yeah.
And the Asian interpretation of it over the indigenous interpretation over them, but they literally couldn't be more in time and space, and
Yeah.
same idea of lock opening and
Yeah.
intuition and holding these older things. Like it's just
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of blows my mind when I stop and think about it for too long because there really are those connections. And it's taken me a lot of years to get out of my rational, I need a concrete explanation for everything part of my brain and start easing into that more intuitive knowledge, right? Like I feel like the way things are structured with education and everything else, I feel like there isn't as much reliance on our intuition and trusting ourselves. And it's this like push to look externally for validation, for affirmation on things, all of that kind of stuff. Oh, geez. I think one of my kids just hid behind a door and surprised the other one from the sounds of it. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, but it's fascinating once you start getting into things on an energetic level like that. It's really cool. So a bit connected to that, the Likely Oracle deck. What was the difference? Like, was there any difference in how you approached the creation of that deck? Was there overlap between the two? Like, how did it differ in terms of your approach? Because the Likely Oracle, you drew quite a bit from the herbarium, right? In terms of, and your prints, in terms of the creation. So how was that different than the tarot deck, or did they inform each other, or what was, yeah, what was your approach?
I think I think it ended up being that the exercise of preparing the Oracle deck needed to happen in order for the tarot deck to
Yeah,
happen.
that makes sense.
I needed to create a little bit more of that muscle, but uh,
Mm-hmm.
the whole Oracle deck appears in the herbarium, where not every plant that's referenced in the tarot deck is in the herbarium.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it can only be so big.
Yeah.
But the so it was kind of like an exercise in trying to, so like you take one plant and you've explored as much of the history of folklores and cultures, and like those common or at least findable
Mm-hmm.
plant, and then how do you distill it down into, I guess that through line,
Mm-hmm.
and even still knowing that that through line was going to be most true for me because
Yeah.
it's my angle of research. But um, so this is the prototype. I've reset the designs. Maybe I have one here. Um, so it wasn't as intensive. It was more intuitive at that point, just sitting back and thinking about how to incorporate um, like what I'd figured out at that point. There's one in particular that I wanted. Yeah. So actually, sometimes it's fun to show how things change. That was like the original.
Oh,
Was
oh,
the,
beautiful.
but then
Oh, I love that.
so
Yeah, it's such a subtle shift, and yet it really pulls the plant forward in a really beautiful way. Yeah. Oh, gorgeous.
so but
Also, I can't believe that you printed that at home because it looks fully professional.
this I actually ordered as a prototype to try
Okay.
to see
Yeah.
if I could find a on-demand card printer. The answer is no. They're all really
Really.
um
Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
but so birch beginnings is where it all boils down for me, and it's partly because after like a big disturbance in the forest, birch stands will often show up, and they
Mm.
help prepare the soil structure
Yeah.
all down to the micro level for
Yeah.
us to come through. So they're and like they're they're white bark in the middle of a
Yeah.
forest moonlit night.
Oh,
They
gorgeous.
kind of
Yeah, and chaga mushroom grows on birch trees too, which is so fantastic 'cause it's got so many amazing healing and medicinal properties, and it's fascinating to me. I feel like birch is such a nurturing plant in terms of how it shows up after the forest has been decimated by, natural events, and then also it's this kind of hosting ground for this amazing mushroom that has all of these incredible properties. So that's really cool. It has that sense of renewal and regrowth that's really powerful.
and if you ever have to trim a birch tree and throw bits of it into the fire, it smells absolutely divine as a wood.
Oh, amazing.
Don't go into the forest and peel the bark off the trees. That's just rude.
No.
But
Yes, very rude. Like taking off someone's clothing. You'd never do that.
hey, but picking up the shed off the ground and stuff, or
Yeah.
even like I said, we have one in our backyard and we have to trim the lower
Oh,
branches.
yeah.
and it's my favorite to throw on the fire.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I just changed the city ordinances here, town ordinances, and not really city size, so that you can actually put a fire pit in your backyard for the first time in a long time, as long as it's within a certain distance of any housing structures or fences or anything else. So I think for us that would be like smack dab in the middle of our lawn. But it's very tempting because I love the idea of ceremony, and so, I mean, the kids are, really excited about the prospect of doing some Dandy's marshmallows on the fire, but I love the idea of, my husband and kids gave me a big cast iron Dutch oven for my burning rituals for my birthday. So I'm excited at the prospect of taking that out and like getting it set up and doing the whole ritual. And like the fire would be in the pot in that case, but yeah, it's nice to look at what kinds of elements you can include that have been foraged off the ground in the forest, right? So you're not taking away from the plants, but you're using what's readily available and locally sourced as well. Like I love that idea of going out into your backyard, so to speak, and see what grows in your local community. Because I feel like one of the reasons I took a step back from health and nutrition is there's this obsession with superfoods that are being shipped out from South America or all these distances in the world. But for me, it's like, what can I find that grows locally to me that is nourishing and fortifying, like something like blueberries, for example, or whatever my local organic farm grows is so nourishing and nurturing and wonderful and just as good for me as something that I'm shipping in powder form from halfway around the world. It could be beneficial, but it doesn't need to come that far, because then it becomes the environmental impact and everything else. I'm going in a bit of a rant here, but I love that idea of sourcing what's close to you, right? And making use of those materials. It's really amazing. That's very cool.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's really great fun to see what you can find and pull from,
Yeah.
if you're able, right? But there's always, even just growing a little rosemary on your windowsill, something
Yeah.
that you nurtured and
Yeah.
I don't want to say brought to life, but you've nurtured to the point where
You've nurtured it to the point that it's not bearing fruit, but bearing leaves and bearing edible material that you can use for different practices. So you have a specific ritual that you do when you set up a fire or burning? Like if you have a bit of birch bark or whatever, do you save that for ritual? Do you add that to a general fire? Like what's your approach for that?
I have jars. I'm a little bit stereotypical in that sense. Jars
Yeah,
full of things that I've just grabbed,
yeah,
and like it, actually underneath our deck, I have a couple of buckets for plants that I want to save that we've had to trim, like
yeah,
ash and the birch, and most of the time the rituals around the fire are more intuitive than prescriptive. Um,
yeah.
like when we're able to light a fire, and even again, like my partner isn't necessarily witchy, but is totally supportive of my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah, that's like Dominic. Like, I don't think he'd ever feel pulled to do it himself, but he's 100% supportive of me doing it. And every so often, like, he'll be like, "Oh, well, why don't you like do like, a little journaling and, do what you need to do to release and go through that ritual that you do." And I'm like, at first I was like, "Are you mocking me?" He's like, "No, I'm totally serious. I know it helps you." And I'm like, "Awesome."
I'll get a like. I feel like you need to do your things or take a bath.
Mhm.
And you go
Yeah.
do things, but even sometimes he'll ask why I'm throwing something onto the fire, and I'll be like, because it is related to this for me, and he'd be like, give me some, and we'll participate
Yeah,
at
yeah.
the same time.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. And there's so much power in ritual too, whether it's pulling sigil stones, whether it's creating like a ritual fire, ritual bath, or even an herbal tea. Like there's so many different elements that can come together in really powerful ways. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Like I feel like there's this idea that ritual is just like this big thing and you need to do all the things and these elements. And I've come to understand that for me at least, it's the simple things that I can pull together that resonate with me and help me process whatever it is I need processing, or recognize, a different transit, whether it's a moon cycle or the shift in seasons or whatever else. And there's such power to that. And yet it can also be very simple, which is really quite amazing.
Like, yeah, most of the power of all of it comes from creating and protecting the space to set
Mhm.
with an intention and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
checking into that and putting out what you like, putting out what you need in an intentional
Mhm.
rather
Yeah,
than
absolutely. I do a journal and burning ritual every so often when I find stuff building up and I need to release. And I love adding little herbal elements into that too. Like I'll do my freeform journaling on a page, and then I usually use a little bit of rose petals and lavender and a few other herbs that I feel drawn to from my stash. I've got a whole thing of tins. Um, and it's amazing. Oftentimes I'll do it intuitively and I'll just go towards whatever I feel pulled to. And then when I actually, some of the herbs I know quite well, others are newer to me. And when I look up the meanings behind them or just to reinforce my knowledge, it's amazing how much that's in line with whatever it was that I needed to release or I needed to, and it just smells so beautiful when it's burning. And it's just, yeah, I'm always paranoid about things catching fires. I have my like big mason jar of water beside me, but
gotta be
yeah,
safe. Yes.
yeah. Oh, safety first, 100%. But there's such power in that too, right? Like it's really, yeah, it's amazing. I'm curious to see because I haven't done a ritual like that in a while, just because I didn't have the right. Like I have a little, like this is my thing that I was using, but it's so small and it just like if it doesn't feel like it's contained enough. And now that I have like the proper huge Dutch oven with a lid, I can start doing this more. And I'm curious to see if my kids will get into it. Like my second daughter is very rational and she's very like not into any of this at all. But my oldest and my youngest, they might get into it. I'm kind of curious to see. It'll be interesting.
The middle child is the skeptical one.
And it's interesting because she's an Aquarius, so she's got this really intuitive side to her, and yet she's Virgo rising and Virgo moon. So it's like this like yeah, it's interesting. So she's like very skeptical and yet she has these really intuitive gifts. So I'm kind of exploring different things with her to see what resonates and what doesn't and yeah, seeing how she can kind of access that side of herself as well. I mean, she's 12 now, so, mom's advice or mom's feedback maybe isn't always welcome, but yeah, it's interesting to kind of explore that. She's very open-minded, like she's, and very curious, but she doesn't really invest a lot in it, so it's interesting.
I feel
Yeah.
like there's ones that ends up kicking in the 20s after
Oh, yeah, yeah.
back around you realize mom was right all along.
You kind of have to have that like period of teen rebellion and resistance, and then you kind of come back full circle and, come back to what you're used to growing up, I think. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm kind of curious.
Right here, so
Yeah, yeah. It's so true. And like we've followed a plant-based diet for I guess what, about 11 years now. And I get a lot of questions from people and they're like, oh, but what happens if your kids don't? And I'm like, I'm not invested in what my kids choose to do. Like it's for them to decide. Like we have a lot of discussions around, where you source your food and the importance of doing, sourcing from local butchers and grass fed and like all of those kinds of things, free range, if they do decide to go that route. But like as a parent, my job isn't to prescribe what they should and shouldn't do with their life. It's to give them information. And for me, it's more important that they go into it informed and with their eyes open and aware of different aspects of food sourcing. But what they choose to do, it's for them, right? They're their own autonomous individuals and they get to decide. And it's the same thing with any of these practices, with the ritual practices, with tarot, with runes, with any of it. Like I'll introduce it to them as a potential option for them to use, but whether or not they choose to engage with it is 100% down to them. Like they're their own people, they get to decide and whatever they can be exposed to is great because more information is great, right? But I think with all of these practices, it's so important to go in with autonomy and to make your own way there yourself, right?
I
And
for
yeah.
that not to not hand down dogma, I think is it the most,
Mhm.
it doesn't like the rest of it doesn't matter as much as just like
Yeah.
I'd give them the information.
Yeah. Well, even like we homeschool, and for me, what they're learning is important to an extent, but it's more how they're learning and their curiosity and their interest in investigating things. And it's like how you approach learning and being self-directed and having those tools that you can then take in high school and in university that will get you where you need to go in terms of it's like the what isn't as important as the how, and having that innate curiosity and questioning everything, even what I'm saying, you know, like do your own research, figure out your own kind of perspective on these things, right? Because it's important to have that autonomy and to have that individual approach and to maintain that curiosity, right? It's not, yeah, anyway. But yeah, it's important, right? Like with all of these things. And I think it's interesting, Kellyanne Maddox just published a book called Rebel Witch. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's an amazing book because it's she's looking at making your practice your own and finding ways to access witchcraft in a way that makes sense to you. So it's not this prescribed thing that comes down through Wicca or comes down through whatever else. It's like, how do I take this practice and make it unique to me in a way that makes sense and that I, you know, that I can understand, and you know, can be as simple or as complex as you want to make it, but it's down to you. And I find that so powerful because I feel like there's a lot of gatekeeping in all of these areas, and it's so unnecessary, right? Just like it's, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
try not to. Everybody's path is 100% their own, and
Mm-hmm.
two roads should look exactly the same because no
Yeah.
two of us are exactly the same, and the end result
Mm-hmm.
should be your own stepping into and owning your own power, like
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
being in that, like, if I don't know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is about getting to that self-actualization and holding it there, and all of the rest of it is just a matter of opinion. And like
100%. Yeah. And I love the tools that you've created, whether it's a tarot deck or the herbal deck, the Likely Oracle, and also the sigils and everything. Like they're all tools that you can use to enhance and encourage your own practice. Like there's so much autonomy and magic in using it as a tool to connect with yourself and what you know to be true and connecting with your intuition. And I love that you've incorporated the plant world into it, and there's all these different layers of understanding that come together in a really cohesive sense that is so empowering, I feel, for people. And that's just such a beautiful gift to create something like that and put it out in the world and help people craft that access to that practice in a way that makes sense to them. And like, I mean, after seeing your print of lemons, like I'm obsessed with lemons and we use them all the time. And every time I look up at my print on the wall, like there's that energetic to it that just adds this whole new level of understanding and appreciation for the plant that's super special in a magical capacity, not just it's got vitamin C and it's good for you and, you know, warding off scurvy, you know, like there's so much more to it than that. And it's so amazing to me that you've created these tools that really facilitate that connection on a magical level with these different plants and stuff. So yeah, I really appreciate that.
you're gonna make me cry.
Sorry. So I'm just trying to figure out, oh, yeah, we've been chatting for a while. That's super exciting. I was wondering how everyone can find you. Like I know you're LikelyTale.witch on Instagram, and then you also have your website. So yeah.
Mostly those. I'm most active on Instagram, so it's easy
Yeah.
to find me there, and my website's just likelytale.com.
Yeah.
And there's the Kickstarter running right now.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
in my bio on Instagram.
Yeah.
Out into other things, but that's probably going to have to wait till after all this campaign stuff's done, because
Oh yeah, it's full on when you're navigating a campaign like that. So when does it run until? When's your last date?
until July 24th.
Ah, that's exciting. Very exciting. Oh, I'm so thrilled. This is such a beautiful campaign and you've got such amazing elements that you've included and it's super exciting. And thank you so much for chatting with me. I've been looking forward to this so much. It's such a treat. I mean, we've seen each other on screen before, but just a couple of times, and it's so nice to be able to have this chat. I think only once before actually in Anthony's course that we did like last November or something. So this is such a treat, and thank you for meeting with me and chatting more about the deck. I'm even more excited now than I was before, and I didn't think that was even possible, but you've just, yeah, all of these elements are super magical and really wonderful, and I'm so excited.
I know we're wrapping up, but we did not mention that you are contributing a recipe into
Oh my goodness, yes, I had that on my list here and I didn't even, you have a recipe book that you're putting together for this too, which is absolutely amazing. And I know like Anthony's contributing something from AP Astrology, and I think Jenny has a ritual that she's included too. Yeah, you've got a whole bunch of different contributors. So yeah, how did that come together, and what was your inspiration for creating the recipes and the associations? And I mean, I'm participating in it, so I'm super excited, and I know a little bit from that perspective, but I'd love to, yeah, hear what your process was for that. I keep saying process, but I feel like this whole creative endeavor is a process, and it's like bringing together of ideas, and yeah.
I don't even, it just popped into my head, and I started messaging people to see if they'd be into it. But there's
Great.
going to be 23
Yeah.
recipes around the major arcana and the bonus card. You are contributing a couple, and Bridget from Goddess Grown Apothecary,
Amazing.
Astro Soul, and Studio Artemy, and Jenny Deer, and her friend Amanda from It's Just a
Yeah.
Podcast.
Yeah.
Aaron from the Magic Makers, and Anthony from
Yeah.
Astrology. I think I got everyone.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's such an amazing group of people too. And everyone in this community is just phenomenal, but it's like, oh yeah, I love it. That's
They're
so great.
favorites. So it's rituals and recipes all based off of the corresponding cards. I really just wanted to shout you out on that.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited. Like it's, I had a food blog before and I've moved away from that, but I think my way back to recipe creation is going to be through tarot and astrology, because there's so much in terms of correspondences and connections to different elements that, and I find that so inspiring, you know, like the different, and also seasonal shifts and moving into different things. And I'm working on a few recipes for the Astro edit for the Virgo edition for for Anthony as well, AP Astrology. And it's really lit that creative fire, because I hadn't added anything to my blog since before I set up this account last November, or not last November, the November before. But it's so nice when you can find ways of reigniting passion in different areas of your life through something that has become a central focus, right? Like it's, yeah.
Yay!
So exciting.
So exciting.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you again for this. This has been such a blast, and it's so fun to be able to chat with you, and I can't wait till we can go for tea in person. It won't be too long now.
Coming soon, coming soon.
Yay.
Thank you so much for me.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me. This was absolutely amazing. Yay. Well, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Sunday and a fabulous week ahead, and I will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.